What is Hatch and Tug Peeps? OldManTup coming at you today with an episode of the Top 5. And today we are going to go over the top 5 Pokemon that need an evolution. Now, first and foremost, I need to say there are a lot of Pokemon that need an evolution. And I compiled a list, and there was a lot of Pokemon on that list that need an evolution. So we're going to break it up into a few different categories. And today we are going to cover Pokemon that don't evolve or have a pre-evolution that need an evolution. So currently unevolvable Pokemon that need an evolution. Now we are not counting legends whatsoever, so none of the legendary Pokemon, because generally they don't evolve anyways, so we're straight up eliminating that. So we're going to get into the top 5 unevolving Pokemon that need to get an evolution. Number 5. Okay, coming in at number 5, we have Tropius, one of the, in my opinion, best designed Pokemon, one of my favorites from the 3rd gen, and it is just terrible. Straight up terrible. Now, I actually really like the flying grass typing. I mean, granted, it's still 4 times weak to ice, it's weak to flying, it's weak to fire, and it's weak to a bunch of stuff, but it loses the common flying weakness with the addition of grass, and is no longer weak to electric. I really like Tropius. Like I said, I think it's very well designed. It has some interesting sets, but unfortunately it just never really had any stats or boosts to its stats that helped it. I think an evolution to Tropius would give it that nice little buff, which would make some of its sets a lot more viable, and it would just make it a lot better. So that's why Tropius is coming in at number 5. Number 4, scoring many gens ago, we have number 4, which is Lapras, which is why it was many gens ago. This is a Gen 1 Pokemon who's always been right on the edge of being really good, in my opinion anyways. Like I said, these are all my opinions, so if you don't agree with them, let me know in the comment section. Tell me what you think. But I'm going to say Lapras for number 4. It's always just been a state of a basic Pokemon. It's never evolved. It doesn't have a Mega Evolution yet. So I think if this evolved or got a buff, it would make it a lot more viable. Now, granted, Lapras doesn't have reliable recovery outside of rest, but it's still, I mean, it's got fantastic typing with water ice. In my opinion, one of the best utility wise, because it hits a lot of things really hard. Unfortunately, its spread just doesn't make it good enough in any one thing that I think an evolution would just give it that little bump up to where Lapras would be coming in hot, and that's why it's number 4. You can't see me. Coming in at number 3 is John Cena! Now that might have sounded far-fetched. And why did it sound far-fetched? Because that's who's coming in at number 3 on the top 5 list that needs an evolution. Farfetchd. One of, in my opinion, one of the most beloved Gen 1 pokes that suck the worst. And I say that with love and kindness because I like Farfetchd. I think it has a unique moveset. I think its typing isn't terrible. I mean, unless you want to go up against a rock or a steel type. But, yeah, I really like Farfetchd. I mean, it's even the story behind its design. It's a duck that carries a leek around with it because that's what most people kill it and serve it with. How morbid is that? And that's fantastic. But, I mean, you give it the, whatever the stick's called in this generation, you give Farfetchd a leek and it gets the attack buff, which it needs, but I mean, its speed is still booty. But I think if Farfetchd finally got an evolution, finally, it would be somewhat decent. So that is why Farfetchd is coming in at number 3. You know what they say, 2 heads are better than 1, and you can definitely say that about who's coming in at number 2, and that's Girafarig. One of the most interestingly designed Pokemon that is also terrible. Now, I mean, you've got it. you've got the Psychic normal typing, which if I recall correctly, completely unique to Girafarig. I mean, which is fantastic. It makes it immune to ghost types, which Psychics don't like. It helps it suck up some of those physical fighting hits with the Psychic resistance to it. So, I mean, it's a very good mixture of typings. Unfortunately, its moveset isn't fantastic, and its stat distribution doesn't really support its better moveset, which is still bad. So, I think a stat redistribution and an evolution, which I think, if it evolved, should change its typing to Psychic Dark. Because, I mean, you look at this thing, you see that tail, you think, dang, that's got to be a Dark type. And in the generation that Dark types were introduced, you think they would have slapped that on there. But they didn't, and that's whatever. But I think Girafarig is a fantastic candidate for an evolution, and that's why it is coming in at number 2. Now, I don't know if you've noticed it to this point, but all the Pokemon on this list are 3rd gen and earlier. And I think an easy explanation to that is Game Freak just stopped making complete Bootymon and started making everything at least somewhat not trash. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying what on this list is trash, but I'm saying maybe it's because they haven't been around long enough for me to fall in love with and see that they need something to make them better. But as I read through the list, everything that I found was 3rd gen and earlier that was a non-evolving Pokemon. Don't get me wrong, I have plenty of Pokemon from 4th, 5th, and 6th gen that are 2-stage evolutions, or evolve once that could use another evolution. An honorable mention from 6th gen that I am going to throw on here that didn't make the list but could have was Dedenne. It's that unique electric fairy typing, which I love electric types. But unfortunately, I didn't have enough use with it in order to say, well, it needs an evolution. I almost threw Emolga on this list, but I think Emolga is almost, I think it's just good enough not to make this list and need an evolution. Would it be great if it got one? Fantastic, sure. But let's get back to the task at hand. This is a top 5 list, not the almost top 5 list. So we're going to go straight to the top, and we're going to see who's coming in at number 1. Coming in at number 1, we have the baddest unevolving fish of the sea, and that is Qwilfish. Now, I absolutely love Qwilfish, and I used it all the way through once I caught it. My original Silver playthrough, not Soul Silver, my original Silver playthrough, I loved Qwilfish. Even though back then, before the physical special split, its typing wasn't fantastic, I just loved it. It hit like a truck, and its typing was just unique to that game. Being poison and water, it lets you hit those grass types that come in to destroy your water types, and it was just fantastic. I loved it. But again, it suffers from the same thing that all the other Pokemon on this list suffer from. It's just not quite good enough. And I think that Qwilfish, I mean, even at the state it is one of my favorite Pokemon. But it's just, I think it could use that little bit of a buff that would make it just fantastically better. And that is why Qwilfish is coming in to top out the top 5 list of unevolving Pokemon that need an evolution. Alright guys, let me know what I messed up on this list, what your thoughts were for the top the top 5 unevolving Pokemon that need an evolution. Now, granted, I'd like to keep legendaries out of this, but just your standard Pokemon that you think need an evolution that don't have one yet. So, alright guys, this has been OldManTup, and we will catch you on the flip side. Peace.